New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton said he was cleared Tuesday after he tested positive for the coronavirus last week. Payton told WWL Radio on Wednesday evening that he had not had a fever for 8 or 9 days after he began feeling symptoms on March 15th and took his test the next day. Here he was updating WWL on how his stay at home is going.
When you're quarantined, when you're basically at home, you stay inside like everyone's doing, and you find ways to pass time. We had a competition committee meeting the other day on teleconference, but I'm feeling a lot better. And unfortunately, my appetite didn't dissipate at all during that time.
Mickey Loomis, who was on the Peter King podcast, was talking about some of the signings, including Emmanuel Sanders, who the Saints brought over from San Francisco.
Listen, we've always felt like Emmanuel Sanders is a quality player. We talked about a year ago or during last season when it looked like he might be traded. Look, we talked about that. We tried to find a way that, hey, can we make this happen? How can we make this work relative to, the compensation that was required as well as, his salary cap numbers, and we just couldn't make that work. Listen, it got to the point where there was a desire on both his part and our part, and we found a way to, create resources in order to get him in the building. And look, we're really excited about it. It'll be a nice compliment to the other weapons that we have on offense. And, man, there's another guy, too, that I look forward, because I think he's going to be a positive addition, not just on the field, but in terms of the locker room and the leadership that he can provide as a veteran player.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders has been to, I wonder how many active players can say this. He's been to 3 Super Bowls with 3 different teams, right? He had the Steelers, he had the Broncos with Peyton Manning when they were just blowing everybody out. And then last year with the San Francisco 49ers. You mean in like receiving? I don't know where he was with the Steelers. He was real young then, right? He might have been 3, but yes, he's never been the guy, and that's fine. He's not going to have to be the guy here in New Orleans. I think that's actually one of the more roundly approved of free agency moves, and Mickey Loomis talks about Emmanuel Sanders wanting to be here. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Emmanuel Sanders' grandmother, who, according to Kat Terrell's piece in The Athletic, told him that she wants him to go to New Orleans. She loves Sean Payton. She loves Drew Brees. She loves the offense, wants to see him in the offense, and Grandma knows best. So thank you, Emmanuel Sanders' grandmother.
You got to get her on the air.
Huh? Not a bad idea.
Here's Loomis talking about the quarantine, how it's keeping away draft picks and meeting with the organizations and teams and how that affects the draft.
To varying degrees, that exists throughout the draft, that there's a large part of the information gathering process hasn't happened yet. And a lot of that gets done in the months of March and early part of April. And, obviously we haven't been able to do that. It doesn't make it impossible, and yet it makes it much more of a gamble, I guess, much riskier than it would be ordinarily. That's just the simple way to say it.
I definitely understand why GMs and front offices want the draft to be pushed back, because of course they would, right? I mean, that's their job, is to try to leave no stone unturned, learn to everything they can about everybody, take as much probability and chance out of the equation as they possibly can. But the reason why I'm also okay with them not moving back the draft is because it is an even playing field. Everybody's dealing with this, right? I mean, it's not like just one team can't go out on visits. Nobody can. Nobody can have anybody work out. And so it's like when you're growing up and your coach tells you, oh, it's hot outside, it's hot for them too. Okay, so no one's getting to do any of this. I'm kind of excited in that regard, because I think you're going to get a draft with a lot more variables, maybe a lot more unexpected moves, because who knows what teams are really thinking right now, given that they haven't been able to do the research that they normally want.
Speaking of the draft, there's a lot of momentum right now about the date possibly being shifted. Here was Adam Schefter on ESPN updating that.
It's interesting, Greeny, because right now the NFL seems intent upon having the draft in April, exactly on the dates it is scheduled to have them, just not in Las Vegas. The general managers are not happy because essentially, as of today, Roger Goodell has ordered that all team facilities shut down until at least April 8th. So where are they going to be conducting the draft? Some teams, like the teams in California, like the teams in New Jersey, Philadelphia, maybe they're not even allowed inside their building by the time the draft rolls around, whereas other teams might be allowed. So that would be an advantage for those teams. I had one team suggest to me yesterday that we could wind up renting a hotel room, a conference room in a hotel, so that we could have our war room there because we're not allowed in our facilities. There's lots of unknowns here about how this is going to work. The one thing we can say is the GMs don't want to have the draft when it is. They want it pushed back. The NFL wants the draft on the dates it has it and hasn't discussed moving it back at this point in time.
Wait, why do you need a war room when you can have a war Zoom? Huh? Zoom's the hotness right now.
I like that.
Video conferencing all over the place. There you go. There's no excuse. Do it remote.
Mickey Loomis believes the draft should not be in mid-April.
My own opinion is that it will be really difficult, and I'd be personally in favor of delaying the draft so that we can get some of the work done that our scout and our personnel people ordinarily do, and then just the logistics of trying to conduct the draft with not having access to your draft rooms in your offices, creates a lot of logistic problems. This is not a fantasy draft that you conduct out there with just a list of things on a piece of paper. There's a lot of work that goes into it to prepare, and there's a lot of work that is done during the draft that, it'll be very, very difficult to conduct that and do it in a way that you're doing justice to the process.
Oh, yeah, the process is going to be thrown out the window. Look, I'm not saying, my earlier comments are not saying that I don't understand or feel for GMs and where they're coming from. It's just that I don't know that the NFL is going to care enough about that because everybody's going to go through it. And so I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening with this draft date.
Today would be opening day for Major League Baseball, and the league will be offering special programming for the event. Rob Manfred said in an interview Wednesday with ESPN's Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter that nothing's off the table as the sport outlines its plan to return from the coronavirus-related postponement. Here was Manfred last night.
Well, we have a whole group of resources that we're relying on to plan and to have the best possible understanding as to what the situation is. We're working with CDC, the World Health Organization, and we have 4 infectious disease specialists from universities around the country, including Columbia, Duke, MIT, that are giving us advice on what they think the course of the pandemic is going to be and what the outlook is for returning to a more normal situation.
Baseball stands to lose billions of dollars in revenue should it miss a significant amount of the season, prompting the teams and players to unite in a desire to return as soon as possible and safely as possible.
Is anybody happier about COVID-19 than the Astros? When's the last time you heard anything about the Astros or Rob Manfred bungling this thing or just how everybody much hates them? Like, they were public enemy number 1, and now Corona became public enemy number 1.
What a nice conspiracy theory.
Maybe that mayor in Tallahassee. Maybe that governor candidate that got caught in the
room?
Miami hotel room with the meth and the.
Oh, he's having a good. Yeah, anybody who's going through a bad PR cycle, this is
great for you.
Yes. Your name has kind of been shuttled to the side a bit. Who knows? Maybe under Altuve's jersey, he really just had a little bottle of COVID-19, and that's why he didn't want him to rip his jersey off. I don't even know with the Astros anymore. I wouldn't put anything beyond them.